Hello, everybody. I am Brenda Thompson. I'm the host of Just Show Up, the podcast where we talk to real estate agents about their journey, about the highs, the lows, the all the good, the bad, and the ugly, and maybe some stories that they are happy that they have overcome from the challenges of. And today I'm happy to have Rosemary Lewis with us. And Rosemary is going to tell us all about her journey. But I want to say welcome, Rosemary. We're glad to have you.
Thank you, Brenda. I am so happy to be here, and thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Of course. So tell us, first of all, I have to just say, I love what you have behind you.
Uh,
So that is just, is it Hi Bestie? Is that
It's Hey Bestie.
Hey Bestie? I'm
Yep.
sorry. Okay. I love it. I love it. So do you bring people into your office or do you do some podcasting with
Yes.
that background too?
So I do podcasting, and we have YouTube video or a YouTube channel for real estate agents in a community called Real Estate Bestie. And like our chant is Hey Bestie. So it's behind me, just a greeting
Love
to the
it.
besties.
That is very cool. So this conversation is going to go great because you and I are both chatty Cathy's then.
Yep. Yep, we sure are.
Good. So let's start with talking about your story, your real estate story, maybe what brought you into the real estate business and just kind of your journey along the way, and maybe a challenge or two that you've kind of come up against as well.
Yes, absolutely. So I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. Never in a million years would you have told me that I would embark on real estate or entrepreneurship. I think a lot of women are probably, or it's a second career, right? It's not something
Yes.
that I didn't go to college thinking I'm going to be a real estate agent. I was actually an educator, a school teacher. I wanted to be a teacher since as long as I can remember. I loved seeing the teacher edition when they used to have the answers and what was in the book. And I just knew that
Yes.
that's what.
I remember those.
Yep, I knew
Flip
that.
to the back.
Yep, look to the back. I knew that's what I was gonna do. I had a teacher that used to let me grade the spelling test, and I'm like, "Yes, this is what I'm doing." But fast forward into when I got married, my husband was very entrepreneurial, and for years, it was the bane of my existence, right? I wanted to have my predictable teaching job. I wanted him to have a predictable job, but he got into real estate on the investing side in the early 2000s, and I don't wanna put him in a category, but like most investors, he didn't really want to pay a realtor. So I got my license with the sole purpose in the early 2000s of listing his homes, right? And I was absolutely horrible at it. In terms of being a good real estate, I was a teacher, right? So I did what I did. But what happened is I was also at that age, we were early 20s where a lot of our friends were getting married. So they would I used to have such the biggest attitude when they would want me to help them find a house back in Illinois. But I was good at the negotiating part. I just wasn't locked in. I wasn't so bought into it. So fast forward to the recession happened. We lost our butts on the investment side. And I thought, cool, he got it out of his system and we can just go on with our lives. Well, no. When you are really meant and called to be something, and that's what my husband was. Years later, when we got into that, when we moved to Dallas, he got into real estate again on the investment side. And I can't tell you what made me. I literally was at church one Sunday and I felt like my pastor was preaching about obedience. I felt like I heard a very distinct instruction. And for once in my life, I didn't try to talk myself out of it, but I gave myself markers. I was like, okay, well, if I pass the real estate test, then I'm going to join a brokerage. And if I get into a brokerage before my teaching contract has to be renewed, then I'll quit teaching. And that's what I did. And that was in 2017. And
So
here
I
we
have to
are.
say this. You're a great negotiator. You're trying to negotiate with God
You
what
know,
your plan
right?
is going to be.
Right, right. I was trying to negotiate with God, but he definitely had something bigger for me. And I knew enough. I didn't have, this was definitely probably one of the first times in my adult life where I did not have a full picture of what would happen. But I was very clear that if I did not follow this path, I would be out of alignment. So I followed it. So I think that the biggest change, you said a challenge along the way, how much time you get. Just that mindset shift of going from an employee to an entrepreneur. There's just so much that goes into being your own business, to building a brand. I think that the biggest challenge was what was happening in between my ears. I'm just not feeling good enough, comparing myself, I'm just not knowing what I didn't know, not being in the right
Mhm.
rooms and the right environments to grow and ultimately serve my clients. So I think that when finally started to lock in on that and lock in on who God was calling me to be, that's when no matter what the challenges is, like, I just approach it from a different perspective.
Good. And it's interesting because when backing up to the beginning of your journey, when you first said that you were an educator, where I sit, because I'm a broker with several agents and
Yep,
have helped agents for many, many years, but where I sit, I always get excited when an educator can come into the real estate business
yep,
because you have a natural love of helping people and of educating them along the way, so your buyers and your sellers are typically very well taken care of because you're talking with them through the process to help them learn what the process is. So as an outsider, I would have looked at you and said, "No, this is a great transition for
yep,
you. You should
yep.
jump in and do it."
And I would hear that all the time, and it took me to, it takes you to actually be in something to understand, but I would hear
Yes.
people say, "Oh, teachers make good realtors." I'm like, "Really?" Because I didn't have to lead generate in my classroom.
Good
But
point.
yeah, but, it definitely I almost discounted the natural gifting and skill set that I brought to the business,
Mhm.
but this is what I love, and I say this, like, the Lord will make room for your gifts where he calls you, and I definitely have seen that demonstrated in my real estate career as it has evolved over time, because it definitely has evolved, and he continues to make room for my gifts in the next room he's calling me to go in, so
So you continue to be led to the next room that's the right room.
absolutely,
I love
absolutely.
that. So at what point would you say was kind of that turning point, and was there a trigger that kind of changed that for you?
Yeah, so when I started in the business, like I was getting full time, I started, school was over in June. I just went straight head first, like quit my job. I was not doing a career. Don't recommend necessarily. I needed to do that because if I had the safety net, then I would not have gone as hard as I did. And I didn't want to split the difference. I didn't want to split my time from my students. That's really why I went full time, because I knew that if I was going to be pursuing this, I didn't want to show up to my classroom half-heartedly. So I ended my teaching career in June. I had my first deal in July, right? So
That's great.
yeah, so I started off like rocking and rolling, but I came to a point where it was very clear to me that I was missing opportunities because I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to convert. There were like all of a sudden, I'm normally the type of person that can talk to a wall, but now I'm worried about every word being salesy. I knew that I needed some support to actually make this a business. And I wasn't looking for it, but I ended up joining a team and found that I love the team experience. I'm a teacher. I was used to working on teams. Being
Mhm.
on a team was a good fit for me. But when I started to outgrow that opportunity and it was time for me to become a solo agent, it's like I needed to fly on my own. I'm not going to say a people pleaser, but I am a lover of people and I don't want to disappoint people. So I'm not going to please someone to my detriment, but I definitely want to be considerate of people at all times. And when I split from my team, it wasn't an ugly split, but it wasn't pretty either. Even though I had been flying solo for real, when I really looked at it, I'd been operating on my own for about 6 to 8 months at that time, but actually not having that umbrella and just taking ownership for my decisions and ownership for the way I was bringing in business and, the type of business I wanted to bring in and my messaging and my marketing. It was
Mhm.
scary as I don't know what, but that's where I found strength, and that was probably in 2019. Ever since then, I would love to say it's been all the way up, but it's been up and it's been up and down, the market and things like that, but just definitely a lot of growth and coming into my own and playing and doing this business my way ever since then.
And so is your husband still working with you as well?
So we work in parallel with each other, not
Okay.
together. So
Okay.
he's not licensed. We since have well, we by we I mean he since has started a rental portfolio. So we hold at any given times anywhere between 70 to 100 doors. So
Okay.
that's the primary focus that he has right now, and he does some
Mhm.
wholesaling and some investment flips as well. So he is fully on the investment side, and I'm fully on what he calls the retail or the more traditional residential side of the business.
Okay. So what originally pulled you in isn't completely what you're doing now, so it has shifted along the way.
Literally, you talk about funny stories because I really thought, like, I thought that I was gonna go in and be, like, on the investment side with him. The very first house that he and I went and toured together because he would, market for distressed properties and to give him quick cash sales and things like that. We went to a house, I wanna say it was in Carrollton, and from the outside, it looked like a nice traditional four-bedroom, two-bath or three-bath brick house. On the
Mhm.
inside, it was a hoarder's house, right? And that didn't even, like, overwhelm me, right? I understand people live different ways. But there was a real live pig walking around the kitchen like it wasn't a huge pig, but it wasn't a little one either. And the pig was walking around the kitchen like it was normal, and nobody act like it wasn't normal, including my husband. So we got in that car and it was just nets, and I was just like, Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to do it, dog." And then, investors, it's more transactional, and
Yes.
I realized that I am way more relational, like, to your point, like, helping people get from one end to the other, even working with investor clients. To this day, I'm not my husband's realtor. There's a realtor on my team that will represent my husband because it's just about the numbers with him. And for me, it's of course the numbers have to make sense, but it's more about the people. So that's what I love is that we were both able to find our lanes and run in it, so we run in parallel with each other, but not in the same lane.
That's great. That's funny too, because we could probably do an entire episode on the crazy things you've seen in
Oh my
houses.
gosh.
And I do know, I mean, there was a long time that potbelly pigs were very, very popular as a pet. So I could see where that could happen.
Yeah, I was like, "What in the world?" And it was I mean, like and it literally like, the house was literally a pigsty. I was like, "Yeah, so no, I'm done. I can't do this."
Okay, so I always like to ask the question too, because this is just show up. What one thing must you always show up for? Or maybe a tool that must always show up for you, but what's your just show up, must always show up piece?
Time blocking.
Okay.
Yeah. My just show up piece is telling my time where to go, and then I'm
And I
clear.
hear you in there, you're in control of that.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Telling my time where to go. I get to prioritize the things that I want to prioritize. And, life doesn't have to, or business doesn't have to happen. But the thing about that is then you now have to take ownership for what you do or you don't do, right? But if there was one thing, like when I first got into coaching and supporting agents, I would get agents that ask me, like, how are you closing these deals? How are you? Because everything that I did and still do is SOI, and it's social media, but social media not from the like it took years for strangers to transact with me from social media, but what social media did for me was people who kind of knew me, they knew the teacher version of me. It allowed me to show up and gain trust with them on social, and then they ended up becoming clients. But if I had to like point to one thing that like once I got locked in on my
Mhm.
daily activities and time blocking and telling my time where to go, that's the one thing that like I time block on vacation. I literally will write vacation on the calendar
I do the same.
because I still want to have ownership of the day, right?
Yes.
And so oftentimes I speak with agents, and the very first thing that I want to know when we talk about what's going well or not is, okay, what does it look like? How are you spending your time? And are you taking ownership and actually making decisions on how you're going to spend your day? So that's the one thing that, in my opinion, you have to show up for.
I couldn't agree more. And I think some of it too, for a new agent, especially if they're coming from a corporate opportunity. And while you were an educator, not quite corporate as we normally think of corporate, but it was enough that you knew your days, you knew your hours, and you would try to plan things on weekends or holidays or summertime. And for so many new agents who come into this career, they have to train themselves
Yep.
to allow themselves to go to the grocery store on
Yep.
Tuesday morning.
Yep.
And that's okay because they're going to be working on Saturday and Sunday too.
Yep.
So it's the time blocking, in my opinion, that helps you to be able to say, no, it's okay for me to go to the grocery store right now because look
Yep.
at all these other hours I'm working for my
Yep.
client.
Yeah, and I love that you say that because, we are definitely when you become an entrepreneur, I remember the moment my husband and I, it was like right after I quit teaching, like this panic came over me because like we were watching TV and I was like, wait, if we don't work, we don't eat. Like, let me pull out I didn't have a client. I was like, let me pull out the computer and like try to do something official. But to your point, time blocking is like, no, when I'm clear on the activities and I block the time to do it, I also don't have to feel guilty for living my life because I have complete control and ownership over it. And you're right. So often I will speak to people that feel like they, if they're not hunting 8 hours a day every day, in reality, they're not. They wasting the time. And then when it is time to be leisurely, you feel guilty because you haven't gone out to do your things.
Mhm.
It just creates a cycle of trauma and negativity on how we're approaching our work, and I'm just not here for it. So time blocking is definitely the thing that I want to say, show up and do that thing.
Yes, I love that, and it helps us to really commit to doing that thing during that time frame too, because it is easy, especially now with social media and all the different distractions we have. It's easy to get distracted, kinda go down a rabbit hole on some other activity, and we've missed our window that we were supposed to be doing whatever task we were looking at doing. So
Absolutely.
you've definitely learned a lot along the way. If there was something that you could say to a new agent, what was something that you know now that you wish you had known back in the very beginning?
So much. Something that I know now that I wish I knew in the very beginning. Like, it's okay to suck.
I like that.
You know
It
what I mean?
is.
I
It
think
is.
that and again, and I know you know this, Brenda, when you work with people, I meet so many people that, like, don't wanna show up on social media or they don't wanna do all these things until it's perfect, but the reality is that you're gonna suck. Now you don't have to stay sucky, but, you're gonna like, it's okay to ask for help because you don't know, and you suck at writing contracts, so talk to somebody who's good at writing them and ask for the help instead of, like, not writing them until you get perfect at it, right? Or not showing up on social media until it's perfect because it's never gonna be perfect, and even if you think it's perfect, like, it's not, somebody's gonna disagree with it. So it's okay to suck, just do it. And one of my
Yes.
mantras is do it scared, and don't be afraid of your fears. Like, it's might feel scary. A lot of us are coming from, I could teach second grade with my eyes closed. So I was used to being an expert, so coming into a space to give myself permission to be a novice, it felt scary, but that's okay. That's the only way that you're gonna grow. And the worst thing that can happen, the worst type of regret to me is the shoulda, coulda, woulda. And we're recording this in October where, people are reviewing their goals or reviewing how the year went or didn't.
Mhm.
And the worst thing, like, that's one of the things I coach on, like, what are your shoulda, coulda, wouldas? And, okay, so what can you do now, though? Because that's the worst thing. It's like, "Oh, I shoulda did this, but I was nervous or I was scared because I wanted it to look this way or be this way." No, you're gonna suck, but that's okay because that means you're gonna get better. And now you're gonna have something to compare it to later. So it is what it
Yes.
is.
Yes. And you talked about working through fear too. And think about all the things that we were once afraid of,
Oh my
but once
gosh.
we practiced at it and did it again and again and again, we're no longer afraid of it. I mean, it's as simple as things like walking or driving.
Yeah,
The first time we ever drove a car for any of us, we were scared, right?
yeah.
Scared.
Hence.
Fear. But we did it and we practiced at it. And now we get in cars every single day and drive and don't think twice about it.
Right, and try to put on makeup while we in there.
I try not to do that. But lipstick, yes, yes, lipstick's
Yeah,
gonna
see?
happen anywhere. That's fun. It's been so much fun talking with you today. I wanna ask if there's anything you would like to leave our audience with, whether that's something that you are planning for your future or something that you wanna make sure that you let the audience know.
Yeah, well, I think that, I have talked about it. Faith is definitely a foundation for me and for the way I run my business. And I actually wrote a devotional for real estate agents, a 40-day devotional, just because, I have been in so many spaces that make it all about production and all about what I can produce and what I can come up with. But at the end of the day, I really do believe that this is a ministry. We are helping people during the most vulnerable time of their lives, especially in this market where it's tough. And I wished that I had a resource that would help me just kind of process what was happening to me spiritually as I was going through the business. And I had the sign up in my office that said, create the thing you wish existed. So we created the Real Estate Bestie devotionals and grab that at Amazon. And it's a 40-day devotional that was written with the woman in real estate in mind. But honestly, I've had friends, clients, other agents go through it and they have all found it helpful. So I would love to share that with your audience.
I love that. And it's something just like this podcast, it's something that we kind of tailor, we kind of gear toward real estate agents, but so many things that we do in this business transfer over to just about any other industry. So something just like that, I love that it can transfer over to people who are not in real estate as well.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely.
Well, this has been fun. Rosemary, thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Brenda. I appreciate you.
This episode has been sponsored by Home Smart Stars. Agents, do you feel unseen, unheard? Maybe wish you had better commission? Maybe wish that you were welcomed and encouraged to show up, to just show up as you are and be your true, authentic self and have all the training and support and tools to help you thrive in your real estate career? If so, then you need to reach out to Home Smart Stars and make Home Smart Stars your home for real estate.